All right, top of the morning, top of the evening, top of the night, whatever time zone you are on. We are live. Hello, everybody. A moment of silence for all those who have lost their lives. All right, with that being said, let's remember this. If we can look up, we can get up. If we can get up, we can go up. Let's get to this music. And I want to get off into this tonight. I just want to say that all right, some women tried it. And I said yesterday, don't step into the lion's den. But come on, Lauren, let's get to this. Let's get to this. Hopefully, everybody is doing the best that they can in the situation that they are in. We're gonna let the record show tonight. Evidence over your emotions and evidence over your feelings. Let's go. Explain myself. Again, I don't care about anyone's emotions when it comes to letting the record show. Now, I ask people in advance not to jump into the lion's den. Some women try. And to the African American females who were wondering, was I even Black? Oh, I am. No need to pontificate. It's my face. And for the woman wondering, am I a rapist sympathizer? No need to wonder. Never that. I'm a truth sympathizer, an integrity sympathizer, and letting the record show with evidence to prove and substantiate your claims sympathizer. That's what I am. So let the record show. But let me get to this. Let me start right here. Get to this. Let me start right here. Because this says a lot about the Me Too movement, the Mess Too movement. This says a lot about the judicial system over here in America. This Cosby case speaks to a bigger issue. Now let's talk about the system over here and why he never should have been in prison in the first place. Here to share on this. So I have my glasses on so I can see real good right now. And I'm not supposed to have my glasses looking at a screen. However, I can read all of this. Let me blow this up for the sake of those who will watch this. Decided June 30th, 2021, argued December 2020, December the 1st, 2020. Commonwealth, Pennsylvania appellant versus William Henry Cosby Jr. So let me be clear. In 2005, Montgomery County District Attorney Bruce Castro learned that Andrea Constant had reported that William Cosby had sexually assaulted her in 2004 at his Chatham residence. Along with his top deputy prosecutor and experienced detectives, District Attorney Castro thoroughly investigated Constant's claim. In evaluating the likelihood of a successful prosecution of Cosby, the district attorney foresaw difficulty with Constant's credibility. All this right here. As a witness based in part upon her decision not to file a complaint properly. So we have an issue there. DA Castro further determined that the prosecution would be frustrated because there was no corroborating forensic evidence. You didn't take a rape kit test? You didn't take a rape kit test? Huh? Let the record show. That means you didn't have any proof other than your word. And because the testimony from other potential claimants against Cosby likely was inadmissible under governing laws of evidence, that means proof. for you women who don't get it, and men too. Science is provable. The collective weight of these considerations led the DA Castro to conclude that unless Cosby confessed, there was insufficient credibility and admissibility. And he said it again today. They didn't have the evidence. He said it today on another news media from his lips, did not have enough evidence to substantiate these claims. Period. Lack of supporting evidence, not lack of theatric emotions, not lack of hyperboles, lack of supporting evidence, lack of evidence. And that means there was none. Pause for a minute. That means there was none. Let the record show. And for you people out there misconstruing what Bill Cosby said pertaining to drugs, don't get it twisted. He never said he raped anyone or sexually assaulted anyone. What he said was he purchased some drugs. From back in the day, that a plethora of Americans were using, like a plethora of Americans are smoking hookah and cannabis today. Let the record show. Evidence upon which any change against Bill Cosby related to constant incident could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and it could not because she didn't have any evidence in the first place. First of all, it was her credibility. Second of all, her decision not to file a complaint in a reasonable time frame. She ain't had no evidence. Let the record show. And so Bill Cosby sat in prison for 3 years for a case that should have been thrown out in court. Period. So while I am elated that he's home, he never should have been in prison in the first place. So let's talk about America's system over here. A system that's broken and doesn't work. Because if it was working right, he never would have been there in the first place. Let the record show. How do you send people to prison without evidence? Oh, I forgot, this is America. They do that all the time over here. Thank you, Mika. I informed several of women of this today. You could be emotional all day long. What does that have to do with the facts? At the end of the day, it's going to go back to, I'm going back to the facts. You can be as emotional as you want to. You can be as theatrical as you want to. At the end of the day, I'm going back to the facts and the proof, the evidence or the lack thereof. Let the record show for you emotional men and you emotional females. I don't give a doggone about what you're saying, running your mouth. Run that evidence. You either have it or you don't. And so it would behoove a lot of people before they jumped out here on bandwagons with this mess too movement that they had evidence to substantiate their claims. So yes, I said it. I told this one lady in the comment section, get your head out your behind. Really. Just because you got raped and you're deflecting has nothing to do with these other women. And the allegations were not rape. They were sexual assault. And he never admitted to sexually assaulting anyone. What he admitted to was the purchasing of drugs. From back in the day that the US government allowed to be sold over here. Don't play. Don't play. So, having said that, let the record further show, and I'm setting it up this way today on purpose. I'm going to go to Bill Cosby, former attorney, also the one who represented Michael Jackson. And so let the record show, as you all listen real good, what really went down and what goes down. See, because people think just because you are paying out, because sometimes attorneys want you to, or sometimes a client may decide to, as opposed to dealing with the headache or bringing reproach upon their families, they just say, get this, I got bigger fish to fry. Go ahead, do that, and let's move on. Let me let the record show. Gail and Oprah. But this mess too movement, your past gonna come on and be brought up too for the world to see and display. This mess too movement and time's up movement, this diabolical facet of this movement of women and men that absolutely nothing happened to you. You will reap what you sow. It's a law. It's a universal law. That has to deal with science. Let the record show. In part.
Disabled children. He did so many good things. And to try and turn that around into making him a horrendous criminal was really tragic. And I think it had a lot to do with shortening his life.
You don't think Michael Jackson has molested one single person?
I do not. I absolutely do not. And I sat with him for 5 months, 5 days a week in a criminal courtroom, watching not just the Arvizo allegations, but other allegations being made against him. Allegations that he had molested Macaulay Culkin, allegations that he had molested a whole bunch of other people. That experience seared into my soul a very strong belief that Michael Jackson never molested anyone.
Is there a possible explanation in the Me Too movement where people now feel more comfortable saying publicly, look, I was abused.
Abuse and rape are two different things.
Can we now please do something about it?
I think the freedom of the Me Too movement has allowed false accusations to be made as well as real accusations. The Me Too movement in America is a very passionate, very powerful movement. And I believe a lot of good will eventually come out of it. I believe a lot of women have been mistreated. A lot of people have been mistreated. And I think to air all this in a public way will eventually find some balance and some good results. The problem with a movement this powerful is that people have due process rights. People who are accused of misconduct have a right to defend themselves.
Do you think if he was still alive, do you think these people would now be coming out and saying the same thing, that he molested me?
I just don't know. I mean, I think I have to believe these are financially motivated accusations. I have to believe that. because how else can you explain it?
How many boys, how many families has he or the Jackson estate paid off over the years?
I'm not aware of their paying anybody off other than a couple of settlements where he was advised by lawyers and business associates to pay money to end the story. And he regretted doing it. He told me many times I should never have settled with a couple of people I settled with, because all it did was open up Pandora's box and create all sorts of problems for him.
He paid Jordan Chandler, the Chandler family, $20 million
Well,
to make it go away.
Again, according to Michael, he had lawyers and business advisors who were telling him, pay the money, it's a drop in the bucket with what you can make around the world. You have an incredible career. There's a lot more time to produce beautiful music and make a lot of money. This is nothing. Get rid of it. Stop the publicity. Do it now.
But do you pay someone $20 million if you think you're entirely innocent?
If $20 million is a drop in the bucket and you're going to make billions instead, maybe you'd consider it.
So again, to keep them quiet.
2 settlements to keep people quiet and to let his business career and musical career go forward.
But you're convinced that doesn't say guilty?
No, absolutely not. Not when you put yourself in Michael Jackson's shoes. When you see the kind of money this man could make, when you see the following he had around the world, when you realize what business potential existed with Michael Jackson products, with Michael Jackson music, with Michael Jackson tours, these amounts of money were nothing compared to what he could make. And he was advised by some pretty shrewd people, pay off these people, you've got bigger fish to fry. You've got bigger things to do, okay? And by the way, in all those settlements, there was no admission of liability. The people he gave money to agreed to sign a settlement agreement in which he did not admit any wrongdoing whatsoever. Now, what does that tell you about them?
And I'm gonna stop that right there. This was the one who started off representing Bill Cosby. I'm gonna stop that right there. I wanted you to hear that part, but I just played it a little longer. The fact that people run around and say, oh, but they paid, they settled. Did you not hear what he just said? No admission of liability, which means he settled out with them and he never said that he touched them, molested them, or were guilty. And that happens a lot in a lot of cases. Now what? Facts over your emotions and over your theatrics, be you male or female. Let the record show. So what does that say about the people? They were grimy. And like he said, it was about the money. Don't play today. Okay? Don't play today. Like I said, it's just some people and some things that you just need not even go there with. But people want to try it. Okay, let's get off into it. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. And let me go back to this case. And what the attorney said today, the prosecutor came out again today and said, had no evidence, didn't have enough evidence to take this. And Bill Cosby never admitted that he abused anybody or raped anyone. He admitted to having those drugs back in the day. That's what he admitted to. People running around talking about, oh, he confessed to this, confessed to that. You didn't see the documents. Let the record show. Reading and comprehension is everything. As well as interpretation mixed in there, as well as integrity, which a lot of people in America seem to lack. as well as people not going through a character assassination before the evidence is presented in its entirety. But it's the American way, right? Send innocent people to prison without having all the evidence. And then you get these clowns and police departments who will tamper with evidence, and judges who will be tampering with evidence, and prosecutors who will be tampering with evidence. Then you get these clowns. Let the record show. Again, the prosecutor said he had no evidence. And Bill Cosby stood on his square, even in prison. He said, I'd rather do 10 years than come up with an admission of something that I did not do. And he did 3 of those years without evidence, no proof. That's just how strong he was on what he stood on. So say la. Process that through your amygdala. And let the record show. Huh. Hmm. 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 Let's get to it. That was just my introduction. Let's get to it. Now let's work. Says a lot about media over here too. Let's work. Yeah. Because the news media need to be sued. Let's work. And the prosecuting attorney who was part of the Me Too movement. Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Before I go here, little Miss Ma'am, you looking a little bit suspicious. The one who works for NBC now as an analyst, prosecutor, Black female, and whatever else you mix with. I saw you looking a little bit suspicious. Things that made me go, and NBC. We didn't forget that you flew all those women out that accused Bill Cosby. Not only did you fly them out, you paid for their lodging and transportation while they were there and all that other stuff. Isn't that interesting? And now that I think back on it, that was another reason that I said this is a bunch of mess. Who's behind this? Who's the little punk and punkette behind this that's too scary to come out? Throwing rocks, hiding in hands. Yeah. Little Miss Missy Moo, I got you tonight too. I got you. Yeah. So let's go. Let's work. Let's let the record show. Because I don't give a doggone about nobody's emotions. With lack of proof. Just all emotional. No evidence. Just all emotional. Talking. Nothing concrete. Just all emotional. Yeah, I'm gonna show this. Yeah, I'm gonna show you this right here. Let me blow this up. Let me do this widescreen right here. Kristen, a prosecutor, we're going to get to what you had to say too. This is you. And this is the manly looking female that alleged that Bill Cosby did something to her. Now, did I have to describe her in such a way? No, I did not. It has nothing to do with the evidence. But this right here, okay, this right here, to me, you the doggone prosecutor, and you this close to a client. That's a little bit too close for comfort. To me, this lacks a certain level of professionalism. To me, this lacks the highest level of professionalism when you're prosecuting a case. Business is business. You there to do business, not be hugged up on a client. An alleged victim. Don't play with me. Let the record show. I'm gonna just leave this here for a few seconds. Hi, Andrea. How you doing? Yeah, we're talking about this judicial system over here in the United States of America and how justice, why Bill Cosby is at home, a plethora of people need to be sued. And both of these are two of them. Both of these females need to be sued, right along with CBS and right along with the rest of the news media who ran up and down the street, right along with everybody else who was out there running their mouths, defaming his character without evidence. And I'll say it again, this is a lack of professionalism, and this is a little too close for comfort for me. Yeah. And this is who you represent. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And if I was to assess this, to me, this looks like some type of relationship, intimate relationship. At first glance, from my perspective. If I'm prosecuting a case and you're my client, what I'm not going to do is be hugged up with you. That's not my job. Oh, they're close to you. That's not my job. My job is to present the evidence and make sure my claim is substantiated. Not to be so close to you that it's too doggone close for comfort, looking like I'm in a relationship with you. Let the record show I said it. But you get a bunch of emotional men and women running around here without reading or thinking. Yeah, mess two movement. Now, let me move on. I'm doing good, Andre. And yeah, so let me back this back. Like I said, while I am elated that he's home, he never should have been in prison in the first place. And so there was no type of justice there. Good old system in America. Now, let's do a recap of yesterday. Do a recap real quick. So, Cosby's home. This is what I said yesterday. And so I gave my reasons why I believe that those who rocks and hide their hands wanted to destroy his legacy and his character. NBC, who flew all those women out, who the former prosecuting attorney now works for, who was just hugged up in a picture with one of the alleged victims. Bill Cosby wanted to acquire you all, and it was discussions being made in 1992 because he didn't like the subliminal messaging and he didn't like what was being pushed through the airwaves and through analog. We were still in analog at that time. Now we digital, right? He didn't like messages that was being pushed. Said this stuff y'all was coming up with serving no educational purpose or value for people. You weren't enlightening the next generation. You weren't enlightening them in a positive manner. You had too many subliminals desensitizing people. In other words, he let y'all know what y'all had on television was raunchy and leading and would eventually lead to trash, straight trash being ran. Okay. Another reason was that oil on his land, allegedly. Another reason was this here. Black history, lost, stolen, or strayed. Bill Cosby has been teaching Black history for a very long time. Real Black history. 60s, he taught it. 70s, he taught it. 80s, he taught it. Was extremely vocal about real history. And like he said, Black history is American history. And he said, isn't it a bit peculiar and interesting that you specifically left us out of books? That's another reason I believe you came out. But let's go. Let's keep on going. Let's get to what his attorney who represented him had to say.
My reaction to the ruling is I am thrilled. And I am pleased that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court saw what we knew all along, which was that Mr. Cosby never should have been prosecuted for this case. He relied on representations of a prior district attorney, and he relied on them to his detriment. And then the current district attorney not only reneged on that promise, but then used his own words against him. It was fundamentally unfair. It was driven by politics, and that's how we got here today. And we're quite pleased that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court seems impervious to what is going on the outside world and all of that pressure that was placed on the criminal justice system from hashtag movements and other media, not just social media, but mainstream media, frankly.
And when I heard her say that, and this is one of the attorneys that represented him, I said, she's setting this up like they getting ready to sue. Hashtag movements, media, social media, traditional news media. I said, I'm listening at this a different way. I'm hearing this a different way. I said, just that little bit right there made it seem to me like they was getting ready to set this up to sue. And rightly so. I'm gonna keep going, let the record show. Now let's do a flashback and we're gonna walk it up. Gloria, Gloria. Oh, Gloria. Everybody remember that song? Gloria. Yeah, Gloria.
So Gloria, what do the survivors that you represent say about this? Do they believe more people were involved? Do any of them remember other people being involved or present?
Well, you know, if, as and when any of them become witnesses, and if they are asked that question under oath, then they can answer that question under oath. Right now, I'd rather not. I would rather not reveal what I know as a result of attorney-client privilege. But I would like to respond to what Tom said and his suggestion that somehow that Andrea did this for money. If in fact she did accept a financial settlement as a result of the civil lawsuit, which by the way is quite common. I have many cases that we settle. There's a financial settlement, there is a confidentiality clause, and sometimes there's a criminal case as well. Nothing wrong with that. Victims have options. They have both options. They can exercise one or the other or both if a DA will agree to prosecute, sometimes not, and then they proceed with a civil lawsuit. They have every right to do so. They shouldn't be attacked for seeking compensation for their therapy, for their medical bills, for their pain and suffering. They are empowered if they do that, and they have every right to do that. And I resent any suggestion by any defense attorney, and many, many defense attorneys make the suggestion, that somehow they only did it for money. Because most victims I know would rather not have been victimized and would rather not have to file a civil suit and hope that that would never have happened.
How do you respond to that, Tom?
Well, first of all, many celebrities are victims of false accusations, and they'll pay money to end the ordeal and spare their family having to go through all this. Michael Jackson freely admitted that he paid almost $20 million to spare his family, an O.J. Simpson type situation. He went to trial and he was exonerated of every allegation, 10 felonies and 4 misdemeanors. He was completely cleared. And I'd like to know who Ms. Allred's clients were 40 years ago. What were their morals? What was their behavior like? Did they go to parties where drugs were handed out? Did they bring drugs to those parties? Why did they approach Mr. Cosby? What did they want to get out of the relationship? I'd like to know who they really were. They need to be thoroughly investigated. Their backgrounds need to be thoroughly checked, and they have to be aggressively questioned to find out exactly what happened and what didn't happen. This is 40 years later, and suddenly they're all coming out making these accusations. Something seems wrong to me.
Well, it doesn't seem wrong to me at all.
Tom, there are, what, about 50 accusers now? Surely they all can't be looking for money.
Karens.
Well, most of them are not going to be able to sue. It's too late. So what are they looking for? Who are they? What are their value systems? What were they like 40 years ago? What do they intend to get from their relationship or their involvement with Mr. Cosby? How did they behave? What did they agree to? Remember, the 60s and 70s, drugs were being handed out at parties, clubs, left and right. People of both sexes were bringing Quaaludes and all sorts of things and using them freely. It was a different society then. I'm not involved in this case. I don't know the facts of what really happened, but I'm very skeptical of this many women suddenly jumping on the bandwagon 40 years later when times have changed, long after they could have made claims to the police or whatever. Something seems wrong to me.
Gloria, have any of your
Well, I don't think
clients
that
been
something seems
contacted?
wrong at all.
Have any of your clients been
Pardon me?
contacted to testify, and will they if asked?
I'm not at liberty to reveal whether there's been any contact with law enforcement. I will say this,
Pause.
that my client.
Now, on the onset, Gloria, when you started running your mouth, I knew he could not wait to say something back to you, but he was real with it. I would have lit your behind up. This is a flashback. I said it when I heard it the first time over 5 years ago, and I say it now. I would have lit you up coming and going verbally. Based on evidence, because you had none. And then I'm not allowed to say because confidentiality. I'm not allowed to say because confidentiality. I'm not, I said, because you didn't have no evidence. You had absolutely nothing concrete. Gloria. That's why Bill Cosby got to go home today and have anything. And pause for a minute. No rape kit test. Pause for a minute. because one of the women said Bill Cosby did something to her in the 60s. And we know what they were doing to Black men in the 60s. For not doing anything to a white woman, but surely, hear me good. 60s, 70s, and 80s, had he did anything that they said he had done, and surely they would have opened up their mouths. Surely they weren't scared, because the system always been working for the Karens over here. He would have been in prison or dead a long time ago. Don't play. Let the record show. Let me let him finish.
Clients have clearly indicated, many of them to me, that they are willing to testify if, as, and when their testimony is sought, if that testimony is considered to be relevant or admissible in the criminal case. You can see what Tom is doing, which is what most defense attorneys would do, which is try to put the victim on trial, try to blame the victim, try to make suggestions about the victim. And we understand that's how the game is played, especially when they're up against a celebrity who has money, who has power, who has fame, who is known as thought of as a respected father figure. This is why some of them didn't come out some years ago, because they were afraid that they would be attacked.
Because this goes all the way back to the 60s. He was no father figure in the 60s for anybody. In the 70s, he was no father figure. His show did not jump off into the 80s. So Gloria, again, Gloria, I would have twisted, tangled up, and tied you up in your own words again.
But now, it's a different time. They now have courage. By the way, some of them did tell their friends and family years ago. Some of them did, in fact, tell co-workers. Some of them may have told therapists, and some of them may have told others. I recognize Tom doesn't know. He hasn't spoken to them. I have. I have spoken to not only all of my clients personally, but many more who have called me, who have not spoken out publicly, but who are also willing to testify if, as, and when their testimony is required. They just didn't want to speak out publicly. So I admire them. They're willing to endure the rigors of being accused of all kinds of things. But it's Mr. Cosby who's on trial, and he better get ready, because it's not going to be fun and games, and as you said, not a laughing matter for him.
And let's talk about that, Tom. So again, if you were representing, you said you don't know about the case, you have not been contacted. I don't know if you want to reveal if you've been contacted or not. But where would you proceed from here if you were representing Bill Cosby? Would you put him on the stand? Would you go for a plea deal? Would you continue on? What would you do?
First of all, Gloria puts up a nice smoke screen. Fatty Arbuckle in the 1930s was accused of rape, and it was a high-profile trial. People have accused celebrities of improprieties for 100 years. The idea that suddenly he was so powerful and you couldn't go to the police and you couldn't make an accusation is complete nonsense. They could have gone right to the police, and a lot of prosecutors would have wanted to bring a high-profile case against a celebrity. But in answer to your question, there has to be a thorough investigation into these women. Everything about their background has to be checked. He is presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And this feeding frenzy against him has the potential for denying him that presumption of innocence. We have to respect the system, we have to honor the system, and his lawyers have an absolute right to find out who these accusers are and what skeletons lie in their closet, and I'll guarantee you there are some. All right.
Gloria. Did you not hear that? So, like he said, if you're going to bring your witnesses, then I'm going to vet your witnesses and go through their history and see if they have a history of lying, and see if they have a history of drug use, and see if they have a history of being a hoe. Whores. So I said it. Whores. See if they have a history of bouncing their behinds on other people's husbands. I said it. Let me say it again. See if they have a history of bouncing their behinds and their lips on other people's husbands for positions, status, drugs, or whatever. Let me move on. Let the record show. That was a flashback. Let's work. Let's walk this on up. All right. Little Miss Missy Moo, who we just showed a few clips back. Closer than close, too close for comfort with a client. And you all were looking like you were in a relationship. Pictures is worth 1,000 words. Let's hear what you had to say. And this is recent. This was her reaction to Bill Cosby being released, who never should have been in prison in the first place. Let's go.
And joining us now is Kristen Gibbons-Fedden, a special prosecutor in the Cosby trials, who is now an NBC News legal analyst. Good morning to you, Kristen. Before we get into the
NBC News legal analyst, the news station that he wanted to buy out, isn't that fancy? The network, excuse me, let me not just say news station. The network that he wanted to buy out, isn't that fancy? That the network that he wanted to buy out flew all these women out. Isn't that fancy? Isn't that a dandy? Let the record show.
Particulars of the legal ruling, just your gut reaction when you found out that the court was vacating those convictions that you had helped to prosecute and Bill Cosby was free within a matter of hours.
Honestly, I was shocked. I was in disbelief. My co-prosecutor, Stu Ryan, had texted me and told me, and I was just in complete disbelief. And particularly since, again, I thought that there was no alleged agreement. We went forward. The Common Pleas Court agreed with us. The Superior Court agreed. The Supreme Court disagreed. But I was just in total shock.
You know, the court's ruling does not touch on the issue of guilt or innocence. It all turns on whether or not there was a valid agreement not to prosecute and whether your office needed to abide by it. But Cosby was triumphant. On the radio, he said, "This is for all who have been wrongfully imprisoned, regardless of race, color, or creed." Your reaction?
My reaction to that statement, particularly as it is made in conjunction with his other statement, specifically the one that this is justice for Black Americans, makes me sick to my stomach and absolutely disgusted. Because throughout the trial and continuing on now, he is trying to exploit the thirst that Black Americans, including myself, as a former prosecutor, have for justice in America for Black and brown bodies. The other thing I want to also
pause for a minute, because 57 of those bodies, baby, were white with no evidence. Nobody's exploiting anything here except for you. You tried it because you didn't have any evidence to substantiate your claim, just like the first prosecutor said he didn't have any evidence to substantiate his claim. So little Miss Muffin, moo, 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 who's working for NBC, let the record show. And you should have stayed, you should have went to a different law school, and you still should probably be in there for some more training. Let the record show. I said it. And instead of, now you work for NBC. Isn't that interesting? Because I would be doggone if if I went to a university and acquired a law degree and passed the United States bar exam to be a licensed attorney, if I sit my butt up and work for anybody's news network or anybody's network. I would be the doggone network, and my network would be the business of getting people free or the business of prosecuting guilty. So people can get some type of justice. I will be about the business of helping my people.
Emphasize is that 3 of the prior act witnesses, Kelly Johnson, Shalana Lasha, and Liesl Luglin, were Black women, Black American women. And so this was not justice for them. And to put himself in the shoes of those wrongfully convicted is just wrong. Yes, the conviction has been overturned, but the merits of the case are still in place. He was found to have sexually assaulted Andrea Constantine. And yes, he does not sit before you as a guilty man. He does, however, still sit before you as a sexual predator.
Pause. Oh, isn't it a dandy, the words that you are using? And I want to know if you and the lady that Constant that you was hugged, I want to know if y'all had a relationship. I want to know if y'all had an intimate relationship. Because again, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you, Miss Little Unprofessional, never should have been that close to her in the first place. As a prosecuting attorney here in the United States of America, where do you get to be all that close, hugged up on clients? But y'all do that stuff all the time over here in America. Oops, I forgot it was America. Let the record show. You didn't have evidence to substantiate your claim. What y'all did was jumped on a Me Too movement bandwagon, Me Too movement mess, web of lies, full of mess, and you tried it. Now your time is up.
Let me ask you, and let me play devil's advocate, because the court's ruling turned on this issue, but it was fundamental. There was a prior prosecutor who said he would not prosecute Bill Cosby criminally. Based on that, Cosby then goes and testifies in a deposition, gives incriminating evidence, and that is then later used by a different prosecutor who says, I'm not bound by that previous agreement.
And you see why we come at media as African-American people and as Americans, the way we come at media. It's the words that you use to paint your narratives. But go ahead and show her and Constant hugged up together. When the attorney clearly said, the first prosecutor said it wasn't any evidence. No evidence. What are you going to do to substantiate your claim? You don't have evidence. You don't have any nothing concrete to take in there. And what Bill Cosby admitted to, like I said, was having drugs. The same drugs that America allowed in here, the same drugs that during that time, a plethora of Americans were using and taking, by the way, right along with acid. That's what he admitted to. It's the worry they try to spin.
The court said this was fundamentally unfair. How do you respond to that?
Look, Savannah, I 100% respect our esteemed bench here in Pennsylvania, particularly all the justices on the Supreme Court bench. But I have to respectfully disagree. And the other thing I want to emphasize is this was a split decision. When we talk about due process rights, I think one of the things we have to go back to is to the actual testimony that was given during the habeas corpus hearing for this particular issue. Baby. And during that hearing, much testimony came out. Number one, we're not even certain that an agreement was made. Typically, when these type of non-prosecutorial agreements are made, they are in writing, they are approved by the court.
And no wonder why the court
and there aren't any
turning this foolishness too, because these vague terms. Much of that testimony was, instead of giving the specific line, you talking about much and you an attorney? Why don't you take us line by line and tell us? Don't talk about much. And what case are you talking about? Should have went criminal, but instead you went civil? Like the prosecutor said, the original one said, didn't have enough evidence. There's no evidence. Let the record show. I'm way behind.
Subsequent indicia of, the absence of such an agreement, such as here, where he released a press release where he said, I may decline charges now, but I will revisit the decision should the need arise.
Well,
in addition to that,
yeah. I gotta cut you off there because of the other breaking news we have. But Kristen, as you said, this was hotly litigated in the lower courts and a split decision.
With the Price is Right. At the end of the day, you did not have a doggone bit of evidence to substantiate your claim, and that it is what it is. Period. And he never should have been in prison in the first place. Let's be clear about that. And you look like you've been in a relationship with Constant. I want to be clear about that too. That picture I saw was worth 1,000 words, and it was unprofessional and tacky 5 years ago. And when I look at it today, it's still unprofessional and tacky now. Stop playing. Let's move on. Let the record show. Now, while people want to be in their feelings and their emotions, let's look at the law and the evidence, and let's let the record show. Because like I said, I don't give a dog on about anybody's emotions. At the end of the day, if you cannot bring me anything concrete to substantiate your claim and definitively prove what you need to prove, then sit it down. Sit it down. Because all you is an emotional ball of hot air at that point. Science is provable. You can prove science. And by golly, to sit up and say, like the attorney said, what a police report said. Rape kit tests they were out there. Where that at? Where's the evidence? You had none. Goodness. You either have it or you don't.
And joining us now is Kristen Gibbons-Fedden, a special prosecutor.
We're not ready to go off no he say, she said. You better be able to prove it. If you're going to litigate for somebody, what can you prove? Where's your evidence? Bring the exhibits out. Bring them out. Bring them out. And I would have called you up on ethics a long time ago. Ooh, I would have had you under a ethics review, honey. Honey. The way you was moving, if I was an attorney, I would have smacked that long time ago. Had you up for review a long time ago, out here trying to prosecute somebody. Woo, yeah, I would have been on. I would have been on your head. Figuratively speaking, with that pen and that paper. Yes, ma'am. Now, let's move on to the attorney that Bill Cosby got after Tom, because remember, at one point, Bill Cosby did hire Tom to be his attorney and represent, and then he terminated him, and he got this African-American sister right here. Here we go. Let the record show.
Cosby's attorney, Monique Presley, is with us now from Washington. Ms. Presley, thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
What was your client's reaction when he heard he was being charged?
Well, this didn't come as any surprise to us. We've been cooperating with the Montgomery County DA's office since we learned of the investigation initially.
But they are saying that there is significant evidence in this testimony that was unsealed by the judge.
Well, everyone can see that testimony. Your network has had it available as well as all others. You know that this was deposition testimony that was the subject of a confidentiality agreement and was supposed to remain sealed, but instead not just the portions that were improperly released based on the judge's decision, Judge Rubino, but also the information that was illegally gained through the release of a court reporter to a media entity. The entire deposition is out there, and there's nothing in that deposition where Mr. Cosby admits to committing any crime. In fact, he denies it vehemently and speaks specifically with respect to this incident.
However, he does admit to buying Quaaludes to use on women, obtaining these Quaaludes to use on women. How are you going to defend that in court?
Now, why would we have to defend that in court? That's an admission that he makes about offering Quaaludes to two specific individuals in the 1970s. 10 years ago, Quaaludes weren't even being made anymore. They are literally off the market. It's not something that could even be obtained. And I'm certain even this hungry DA trying to keep a campaign promise isn't going to assert that Mr. Cosby has had hiding somewhere in his medicine cabinet Quaaludes that are 30, 40, almost 50 years old. And that's what was offered to Andrea Constant on the evening in question many years ago.
Right there.
Well, you know,
I love it when attorneys come in and just scale it all the way down for you. Media. And others.
more than 50 other women have accused your client of similar acts regarding sexual assault.
And that's incorrect. More than 50 women have not accused my client of similar acts. It's easy for people like yourselves to say that more than 50 women have done that, but that is not true.
Well, 50 women have come forward and publicly stated through the press that Mr. Cosby allegedly sexually assaulted them. Many of them have the exact same stories. How do you plan to defend that in court? Or will you try to stop that from being admissible in court?
Well, it certainly isn't admissible in court, but again, 50 women have not come forward and said they had the exact same story. Someone saying that he rubbed against them or the front of their breast at a party is not the same thing as saying that they were in an ongoing consensual adult relationship and then one evening after multiple interactions, I believe I was drugged. Those aren't the same thing. And what this DA has to do is prove the facts of this case.
But Ms. Presley, as you know, the prosecutors could persuade the judge to allow some of the evidence from previous other cases into this one. You have to be prepared for that.
Well, there aren't previous other cases. What you mean
there are
is
allegations, as you know, and there are a wide range of allegations, as you know.
Yes, and those are all allegations for which there's no corroborating evidence, allegations from decades ago, allegations from women who never bothered to go in and make a complaint to police, and in most instances claim that they didn't tell another living soul. So if a judge chooses to consider from a prosecutor such testimony, then we will deal with that at that time.
He took a cane with him to court. Is his current health status part of your defense?
His current health status doesn't have anything to do with the defense for this unsubstantiated charge. His current health status is that he's a 78-year-old blind man who they've chosen to charge. That's not a defense to a crime. That's just a fact.
Monique Presley, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And that's who he hired when he let Tom go. And yeah. And you saw them 7 defamation lawsuits that she filed on his behalf back then too, as well as going specifically after that supermodel when they named her. Yeah, and you saw, you heard her coming with the facts and not dancing around, playing a game of cat and mouse with her words. Like Gloria was doing and Little Miss Christian former prosecutor who works for NBC, the network he wanted to acquire, was doing with her words too. Let the record show, while she was cozied up in a picture with a client, an alleged victim, Constant, which was very unprofessional, by the way.
Cosby's attorney, Monique Presley, is with us now from Washington. Ms. Presley.
Okay, I didn't do anything after her. I kept everything else out. But let's let the record show. Again, I have had so many females today mixed up in their emotions. And I had to say, I don't care about what you feel. What can you prove? What can be proven? And I had to tell some of them, well, if you got your evidence, run it. Run it. You got the evidence, run it. Oh, whoops, you can't run it because you weren't there. And so all the other information that you're going off of at this point is hearsay. You were not there. You have no concrete proof. You have nothing to substantiate what you're saying or back up what you're saying. You cannot definitively say anything. You have no evidence and you weren't there. And hearsay, that type of hearsay is not admissible in the court of law over here in the United States of America. You either have some evidence or you don't. What can you prove? Because I don't care nothing about what you said. What can you prove at this point? You could be over emotional, and I had to tell a couple of them today, which you're over emotional right now, but you're being over emotional, but what can you prove? Come with it. You got something, bring it. That's right, bring it. But all they kept doing was deflecting. And I said, I don't care about the deflections. Don't deflect. Bring what you got. Bring it. You got it, bring it. And they wanted to deflect and say, you're just a rapist sympathizer. I said, who did he rape? And can you prove that he raped anyone? Can they even prove that he raped them? Did they go, where's the police reports at? Where are the rape kit tests? Where, show me some video, show me something, show me some images, show me some proof that he raped them. See, I have seen men and women get out here and get it twisted today. But today the women wanted to attempt to try it. And I asked them in advance, don't step into this lion's den, because you will not get out unscathed. So now they had to back it up some. That's right, back that mess all the way up, because you don't have a lick of evidence. And let me go back to and let the record show that why the first prosecutor did not bring Bill Cosby, he couldn't bring the case because he didn't have no evidence. Let me go back and let the record show. No evidence, lack of evidence, no supporting evidence. Saying, Cosby, you're not even credible. We blow it up because people act like they don't get it. Let me blow it. Let me take this down some. It don't need to be up that big. So here it is again. I am the seventh down, a line down from the top in this paragraph. Further determined that a prosecution would be frustrated because there was no corroborating forensic evidence, and because the testimony from other potential claimants against Bill Cosby was likely to be inadmissible under the governing laws of evidence. You did not have any evidence. And Constantine, your stuff was, you weren't credible. It was issues with your credibility in the first place. And people need to not think. Now, I showed another one of his former attorneys who also represented Michael Jackson, who told you why times many high-end wealthy clients will settle in cases. And then you get the client on the back end, you get people running around saying, well, they did a settlement, they paid out, but they don't tell you the no liability clause in the settle out, that those people never admitted to doing any wrong. They just wanted to settle out so their family members could have some type of peace and move on. So their personal families would not suffer all that all the media ridicule, and had a news media and a paparazzi in their faces all day. And really, it had nothing to do with their family members, because their family members weren't accused of anything. It had everything to do with that person. But see, people like to do a lot of deflecting, like some women try today. Don't come to me deflecting, talking about what happened to you. And then I have to turn around and tell you, psychologically, you're incapable, because of what happened to you, to discern and correctly, rightly divide whether or not somebody else is really an abuser or whether a female is lying, because you have placed the way you are processing information based upon what happened to you is skewed now. Because you're placing yourself in their situation and viewing this thing and reliving what happened to you through them, like this person did that to you and they didn't. You put yourself in that situation and make it seem like, oh, you're reliving what happened to you. You're reliving what happened to you. Oh, and all of a sudden, and this man didn't do a single thing to you. Another man did. Or some other males did. Had nothing to do with you and them doing anything to you. You are still hurt and not healed from what happened to you. So don't bring that deflection to me, because I'm going to tell you, you deflected because it happened to you. And so psychologically, you cannot separate. Logically, you're incapable of separating. And taking this on as a case-by-case basis. It's a mental block there because of the trauma that a lot of women have encountered behind this, those who were victims for real. And so psychologically, many of them aren't strong enough to come to situations like this and really be impartial and non-biased and look at the evidence for what it is, or the lack thereof, and say, you got supporting evidence or you don't. Instead of coming in, oh, the man did it right off the back. Oh, because it happened to me. But that man never touched you. Another man did. And just because it happened to you don't mean that female that's up there saying it happened to her can't be lying. Don't come in like all women are telling the truth, because that's a lie. That's a lie. Women will sit up and set a man up as quick as day. I've seen it. Set you up and make it look like you did something that you never done, and it's not just, and it's not right. So yes, I had to tell plenty women today, it is not right for you to come in and steal another male's life, because that's what you're doing when you come in and you don't look at this thing from a clear mind and put it in perspective and not take it back to your personal abuse that you encountered from a man who never touched you or abused you. Now you deflect onto every man because some man abused you. And instead of sticking to the facts, you want to come in deflecting. There was a lot of deflecting going on today, but I had to tell him, no, I go off what can be proven. You either going to bring me something concrete or some evidence, or you're not. Because just because you're a woman don't mean you can't lie. And what we get into is he say, she said. And I don't care about what he say, she said, because they both can be lying. Both could be lying. So that's why we need some evidence. and we'll see who's telling the truth. But if you have no evidence, stand down. Stand down. Period. And again, prosecutor had no evidence. Period. And then was questioning credibilities. Period. So let me make it very plain for those men and those women who tried it today. Because oftentimes they like to come and just tap on your channel and just be watching. So when you come to watch, let me make this very plain. Let me stop the share on this right now. Let me blow this screen up. Massage this out. I have my glasses on. Let me make this very plain. Number one, you don't get to come to me with lack of evidence. I don't give a flying fight about your feelings. When it comes to somebody serving prison time and being stolen away from their family, you better be able to factually, with evidence, substantiate your claims. You can leave your high pervolated emotions out of the equations and go on what can be proven. And not based off what you think and what you feel and what you went through. It has nothing to do with the next person's situation. You take this on individual by individual and case by case. Three, for women who want to deflect and say, oh, you're just a rapist sympathizer. No, I'm not. I'll say it again. I am a integrity sympathizer and truth sympathizer and fact finding and fact proving sympathizer. You either can factually prove it or you can't. You either have the evidence or you don't. And just because some man or woman abused you does not mean automatically when a male or female run and say it happened, that it was so. Because I can say the sky is pink. Does that make it true? I can say the ground is blue. Does that make it true? I can say fire is purple. Does that make it true? Right, Mika. Let the record show. Nigeria, you could have left what you said. Wasn't nobody gonna hurt you. Let the record show that don't nobody get a pass. You either come with some evidence or you don't. Now, am I saying things didn't happen to certain women? No, I never said that. Also, when I get women running out here talking about, Oh, we're in support of women. Are you really? Now let's have this conversation real quick. And then let's bring it full circle. Are you really in support of women? Are you really in support of women for real? Because you had some women who took their raunchy behinds up there to sleep with a married man and bounced their butt up and down on somebody else's husband. What about the woman that was on the other side? Are you really supporting women? Or are you really in support of some hoes, some whorish women? Some hoes in this house. What are you really in support of? Are you supporting the woman who took her butt, who slithered her behind up there, or walked her behind up there willingly to sleep with somebody else's husband? That's what you supporting? With the female on the other side being ridiculed and shamed and bearing the brunt of her husband's ignorant decisions to doors that he opened, that she had nothing to do with. That's what y'all supporting, but y'all supporting women, right? Are you really? Do you really want to have that conversation? Let me say it again. Some women who willingly took their behinds up there to sleep with a married man. Character issue right there. Integrity issue right there. They didn't go to the women came to them, allegedly. We got an issue right there. Why did they have their bobbleheads around those married men in the first place? Talking about they were there, some of them talking about, when I was reading through what the 60 women said, they were there for auditions. You're not there to audition your alone. Who else was there? In the 70s, 60s, and the 80s? Who else was there? And circling back around at the end of the day, you either have evidence or you don't. And sometimes some women are not thinking some women do become so traumatized to where they couldn't get anything, but they can tell you what time it was, what they had on. They can detail everything. They can remember it like it was yesterday. And for some of these lying, raunchy tail stank women, nothing ever happened to you. And for some of these lying, raunchy, stank tail women, you were nothing but a Tatiana bouncing your behinds up and down on somebody else's spouse. And for some of you raunchy, stank tail women, you were nothing but a booty call. Let's make it plain and call it what it is. Or what it was. And nothing happened to you. What happened was this. You looked up in your life, you jumping your little tail up and down on somebody else's spot, and you didn't get the cash that you thought you should have got back then, or you didn't get the recompense or the money or the payout that you thought you should have got back then. And then, you wake up 30, 20, 30, 40 years later, and you look at your life. And you have remorse and regrets. And then you try to redeem that time. and try to recoup some cash. Because you realize you were a silly girl, foolish woman back then. But let the record show. The prosecutor said he didn't have no evidence. He didn't have enough evidence to substantiate the case. So why would he prosecute something, go up in there and look crazy when he have enough evidence? And then you get caught up into the political arena too. He got caught up in that too. Let the record show. Then you get these over emotional people out here who wouldn't even read through the documents, wouldn't even read through the case, just out here running. Haven't read nothing. Just out here going on emotions. Didn't even sit down and read. And want to run out here and interpret something, having read nothing. I have to, Mika. I have to. And then concluding, let me circle back around to America's system over here. Again, as I was elated as Bill Cosby came home, at the same time, the fact that another Black male in America went to prison with lack of evidence says everything to me too. The fact that jury can sit down and say you guilty without a shred of evidence, just going off women's testimonies, that is the evidence without any proof, says everything to me too, because that's that mess a lot of police officers over here try. Our word is the testimony. We don't have any real evidence. You just have to take our word. Our word is the evidence. Like, who in here believe that the police don't lie and won't lie? Raise your hand if you believe that. Raise your hand if you believe all women tell the truth and they won't lie. Like, raise your hand if you believe that. Like, raise your hand if you believe men won't lie and they never lie. Like, raise your hand if you believe that. So we need to stop this stupid stuff and get back to evidence and what can be proven. When somebody else's life is on the line. And I'll say it again. First prosecutor said it all, didn't have the evidence. Michael Jackson and Bill Cosby, former attorney, said it all too. A lot of times you get wealthy people or entertainers or whoever, whatever, and they're paying out these settlements with no liability. When they put it in writing, we're just selling out and we're not admitting to any guilt or wrong, no wrongdoing. We just want to get this over with for our family's sake so we can move on. So what does that say about the people who take the money? When you sit up there and you read the document and the person on the other side told you, I'm going to give you this money, but I'm not admitting to doing anything to you because I've done nothing to you. And you take the money anyway, you ain't got no character and integrity. You were there just for that, the money. For people running around talking about it should be about the justice, but you got all these people who took this money. And the person on the other side said, we ain't did a doggone thing to you. Take this and get out our face. Get out the way so we can move on. Enough with you. interfering in our family lives and everybody else's life around us who we love. What does that say about the person? Oh, okay, excuse me, everybody. So, having said that, I want to say this to people. Yeah, emotions, they're human. We're human. Fine. Everyone has them. But at the end of the day, you got to come back to the evidence and the facts. Your emotions are not the facts. The facts are the facts. And if we're really about justice, then we need to allow people to go through their process, to have their day as the court. And it is our responsibility to go wherever the evidence that can be proven leads, not lying tongues or running mouths. And hyperboles. And if you're going to throw something out there, don't start deflecting when somebody come right behind you and say what they say because you posted what you posted. And then they come right behind you and say, where's the proof? And say, okay, are you really looking at this from a analytical perspective or logical perspective, or are you just running off emotions? Because a Me Too movement jumped up. Talking about all believe all women. Kick rocks with that. All women tell the truth. Kick rocks with that. No. Now, having said that, let the record show. You all have a pleasant evening and a pleasant night. Bye, everybody. And that concludes, for now, my Bill Cosby section. You'll see him doing Black History Month, or when I talk Black History, like you usually do, for those who watch, you'll see him annually over here when I do Black History.